Hello and welcome back to Spreading the Good Stuff. I'm Leonie Cannon.
I'm Christy O'Brien.
And I'm Katrina Myers.
Hi girls, it's great to be with you again. This is technically our 52nd episode, but it's also the first episode in a special 4-part small business focus series that we're sharing here on the Podwaves for the whole month of October.
Yay!
Which we are really excited about. So October is Small Business Month in New South Wales. And in celebration of that, we're partnering with Murray River Council to deliver this short series of episodes that's really aimed at supporting people in small business. So just like us, that are based across regional New South Wales. I think it's fair to say, it's probably an understatement to say that this year's been one of the toughest on record for lots of small businesses across the nation and across the globe. Many have suffered huge loss. They've been forced to shut their doors in some instances. They've had to pivot many times to retain their customers, to capture new markets. They've had to change their offerings. Many have had to move online and move whole businesses online. It's been a huge period of change. And so over the next 4 episodes, we're going to be doing our bit here on the Spreading the Good Stuff podcast to help businesses reboot, to upskill, to look to the future, and to really, I guess, help improve their confidence. So as part of that, we're going to be chatting to some wonderful small businesses in this region who have been forced to pivot as a result of COVID-19, and really looking at some of the lessons that they've learned and are continuing to learn along the way. Ultimately, we hope that the conversations go a small way towards nurturing a really strong, engaged and inclusive business community, and one that we can all learn through and move forward together. So we're going to kick off this Small Business Month series with a conversation today all about building your brand online. So prior to COVID, many in the small business community already had an online presence, but there were also some that didn't. So for some, it's been a time that's been about really examining how well their online presence has been working for them and looking at ways that they can do things better. For other businesses, it's been about moving whole businesses online and all of their product and service offerings. And then there's been ones that weren't online at all until now. So that's been a massive learning curve for them. So today we're going to do a deep dive into the importance of having an online presence and some ways that we can go about building your brand online. So helping people out who are starting from scratch, people who are already in the game. It doesn't matter where you're at. We really hope that we can share some helpful advice that might make the whole process a little bit easier for you at this time. So Christy, I might throw across to you first.
Sure.
Just to talk about, I guess, before we even start building that brand online, what are some of the first important steps?
Sure. So I think that, consideration about sort of who you are, what you do and why you do what you do is probably the first thing to think about. And even if your business has already existed for a little while or you are brand new, it's a really good exercise to sort of really get clear on your brand story. And your brand story is essentially your why. And I know that, that what's your why has been sort of something that's been thrown around in recent years. I think we can thank Simon Sinek. Is he the guy, I think, Katrina, that started the, what's your why? And it really turned marketing on its head too, didn't it? And as far as story to sort of tell the world what you do has become really important. So, not figuring out what you do, because what you do is probably quite, obvious, but really sitting down and working out what your why is. And that comes down to sort of, why you chose to do it, why you get out of bed every day, and it might be for the money, but that's the obvious one. We're talking about, like what's deep down inside you, and it's about your values. What are your values that you bring to your business? Are they in line with your personal values? Because you would hope to think they are. And if they're not, then maybe that's a process you have to sort of work through as well. Things like your mission statement, like why do you exist? And you might have a product that services, people in this way, but how does it make their lives better? Like how does it actually really bring some change and value to people's lives? So getting really clear on that, on your brand story, is actually something that helps you move forward, and it kind of then influences everything you do moving forward, whether it be in marketing, whether it be content for online. You know, often in our business at The Splendid Word, when we write people's website words, as a really great example, they're a brand new business, you know, this is what we do, can you write me a website? And then we will say, well, actually, why do you do what you do? And some people find that really difficult. So we have a process that sort of helps people unpack that and really figure out, like, ask questions about why you do what you do. And we find, don't we, Lee, that some businesses find that really difficult, and we give them homework to do that. It's kind of, it's not easy, but it's such a great process, because when you really crack it open, it opens up this whole world of, for want of a better word, like marketing content, you know, like, because that's what it is. Marketing content is literally telling the world why you do what you do. And honestly, people will come to your business because of who you are and why you do what you do, as much, if not more, for what it is that you have to sell. Would you guys agree with that?
Absolutely. Yep. So Simon Sinek says people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it.
Yay,
so that's
Simon.
Exactly what you're talking about there, Chris. Yeah, that's like a summary basically of exactly what you said. And that's certainly been, I guess, kind of my experience in watching brands grow. I love when you do that. It's so funny. Watching brands grow, and you know, the ones you love are the ones that you really buy into their story and their why, and that you really connect with. And I think that's, like, you know, as humans, we're all craving connection, and so when you can really feel connected to a brand and what's behind it, that's when you like latch on and follow and want to kind of, you know, binge on everything they do. And so that's the gold, really. So I would say definitely agree with you on figuring out your why. And then also, once you've done that, thinking about, well, who is it for? So whether you're a product-based business or a service-based business, it's really then about thinking, well, who is my target audience and who am I doing this for? Once you're very clear on your why, I think the why, you know, your reasoning is first and foremost important. But then who is your target and who is the product for, and or who is the service for, and really honing in on that and getting really clear on that. Because, you know, all the top kind of brand specialists and online course creation people and all of that, they all talk about, really, you know, there's you know, we all know there's so much on the internet these days. It is just there's so much to choose from. And so if you can make it seem like you are speaking to people on that really individual level, then that's what will get them in. You know, you've got to be able to talk to them and make them feel like this product or this service is made for them. So that's really important. And I would say that around also just thinking not just about your story, but also your imagery, your logo, your colors, all that kind of stuff. Really try to hone into what your customers want, because, you know, I mean, we still often see some like logos out there that are just, you know, like slapped together or whatever, but, you know, and the branding and the colors, but really that stuff can actually be really important as well in connecting with your people too, like what really resonates, and thinking about what your target audience would want, not just what you like. I think that can be really hard for people sometimes, is to get into the shoes of their customers, but really valuable and really important when thinking about your actual brand imagery and not just your story, I think. So in creating our brands, sorry, you go.
Absolutely, what you're saying there is so true. And I think before you can go down the path of looking at any of your imagery, you need to get really clear on that stuff that we've just talked about and that Christy's just spoken about, that who you are and why you do, what you stand for. Because until you've done that, it's really hard to pull together all those other elements.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's right. And then that's like your pillar then, and your brand values and your brand vision and all that kind of stuff. And then that's what you go back to when you're designing all of that, so that it all aligns. And I think that's where the gold is. Yeah. And I was just going to say, like, in creating our 3 brands, that's what we've really, well, so we've created the Barham Avocados brand, the Avo Club brand, and then now I'm working on my personal brand. And I think it also evolves too. Like, I don't think, so sometimes you can get really hung up on this stuff too. And it has held me back on my personal brand a bit, like, oh my God, who's it for? Who's my target? Who's my ideal customer avatar? And you can get really sort of stuck in that too. So be careful of that, because it's okay if it evolves and changes as you grow and as your product grows or as your service grows. That's all okay as well. So don't feel like it's necessarily got to be whatever you decide on today is what it'll be forever, because it can evolve, it can grow, and that's all okay. So just keep that in mind as well.
I just wanted
What about
to
you,
ask
Lee?
Katrina,
What's your, oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry. I was going to ask Katrina before we move on to you, Lee, just about that knowing what your audience wants. Like, how do people go about doing that? I know there's, you know, market research you can do, and I've spoken to other people in small business, particularly online small business, that, you know, actually pay, like outsource that, you know, research, online research. So how do you go about that, Katrina?
Yeah, it's hard. I think it's a bit of which came first, the chicken or the egg, because you've got to start putting some stuff out there and then seeing what resonates with people a little bit as well. And that can be that really challenging part, I think. It's sort of like taking that leap to put it out there before you really know, because unless you've, you know, what do they say? Clarity comes from action. So unless you've actually got something out there,
yes,
you don't really know. And you can do things like you can survey your customers, or you can ask the polling questions on Instagram. Sometimes you'll get crickets, other times you'll get responses. I know that when we interviewed Sally Branson, she was really big on do the market research, like pay someone, you know, she had found that very helpful for her business, doing the actual, you know, professional market research. But yeah, sometimes you've just got to start putting stuff out there. And, you know, like if you're using Instagram or using social media, track your insights and look, well, which posts are resonating, what's resonating with people, and that kind of thing. And, you know, if it's a product-based service, then yeah, again, you can Facebook and Instagram have such great audience analysis, you know, works behind them now. So you can look at all of that and get a real sense of who is really connecting with the products or the service. So, but I think it's about, in those very initial stages, it's just about getting something out there and then seeing what resonates from there, and then sort of making it grow and evolve as you go, I think is,
yeah. Because sometimes I think
you
want, and I think sometimes when you're starting out, like you want everything to be like, you know, ready, you know, like,
yes.
But if you wait for everything to be ready and know everything and find out all the info, you'll never start, you know? So yeah,
exactly.
I think that sometimes it's better off just to get something out there and then just see and go with it is what you're saying, which is good advice.
Yes,
Totally.
I would 100% say that from my experience too. Like with our Barham Avocados brand, it was easy. I just sort of got it out there and got going. With my personal brand, there's a lot more fear and limiting beliefs around that. And so I really, you know, so I think that can happen too. But unless you just get it out there, you won't know.
And I know, Lee, before we cross to you, Lee, like you and I talk a lot with our clients at the Splendid Word about that paralysis by analysis, you know, and even if it's the smallest content or the biggest amount of content, you know, like, yes, make sure it's as good and as accurate and correct as it can be, but just put it out there, you know, because you can just be crippled by that analysis, can't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's, you know, it's also a bit about running your own race too, isn't it? I mean, we can give all this advice about what's worked best for us and what we hear from the experts as well, and things to try that, you know, are really worthwhile. But it's about doing what feels right for you as well and for your business. There's no wrong way really to do it, but there are, you know, a couple of things that you can build in to try and, I guess, just give you the best chance. And for our business in particular, because we are all about communication, content writing, storytelling is just such a huge part of what we do. That's how we've really chosen to build our brand online, is through story. But the thing about that is that that's not just because of the nature of the work that we're in, that storytelling works for us as a brand online. It is proven to work for absolutely any business, whether you are a service-based business or a product-based business. Storytelling has been proven time and time again to be that sort of golden nugget that makes the huge difference. And I love this quote. I came across it many, many years ago. It's a Native American quote, but it's, tell me a fact and I'll listen. Tell me a truth and I'll hear. Tell me a story and it will live in my heart forever. And it's just so, so true when it comes to building a connection with clients, that the best way to do that is through storytelling. And this isn't just something that we're making up. The science is there to prove it, that stories are the quickest path from the heart, or between the heart and the mind. So our brains are just hardwired to remember them. It's just a fact. So,
which is really exciting too, Lee, I think, for businesses, because sometimes I feel like there's this silver bullet out there and there's this kind of secret formula that I don't know, and how do I figure out how to do it? Well, it's already inside you. Like, your marketing tool is your story. And you know, touching on what you're saying there about the science, like Google as an example, like they now recognize, you know, like storytelling, like human centered content as way more important than search engine optimization words in your website content. Like that is really great, because it means that anyone is capable of telling their story because it's coming from within.
Exactly. And that, I mean, there's such a big difference. There are many brands and businesses out there that don't weave story into their brand and their content marketing. So if you look at the two, when we market, whether it's a product or a service without storytelling, you can see it. You can look for examples. If you do it without storytelling, it's a really hard sell for that service or product. But when we use those stories in our content marketing, we're showing through that story how this product or the service that we're offering can actually change someone's life. And there's a really big difference in that. And that's the power of story right there. And talking about that brain science, when we tell stories, there's those neurotransmitters are released into the brains of our listeners or our readers. When we're telling that story, those neurotransmitters are released, and they induce those hormones, so those good feeling hormones like your oxytocin and your serotonin and the endorphins. And so when our customers have got those beautiful hormones running through their body and coursing through their body, that is when they are connecting with us. That's when we start to build that real trust and human connection between ourselves and our brand, and between the clients themselves. And when they've got those beautiful hormones in their body, they're more likely to want to buy from us or to want to support our business. So it's just something to keep in mind. And like you said, Christy, often with clients that we're working with, and we sit down with them and we talk to them about the importance of storytelling, they will say to us, but I don't know how to do that. Like, how do I weave story into my content marketing? But there are just so many opportunities to do that. It's not as hard as what it seems. And I think a really good way is to have a look online at other businesses that are using story, and just to note the difference and see how they're doing that, and see how you can weave that into your own content marketing.
Yeah, and that's the beautiful thing about every business, every small business particularly that exists. Like, they all have a story about how and why they came to exist, and why they keep choosing to do it, particularly during tough times. Like, why is it that you choose to continue on even when sometimes it seems really hard? So that's a really important story, because people can connect with it. It's that human connection, and that's what drives people to kind of align themselves with those businesses. So where do we tell these stories? That's probably the next question. Like, how do you choose where to share your story? Because the online platform is pretty big and vast and scary for those who haven't kind of dipped in. So do we want to talk about that?
Yeah, and I would say straight up to not be overwhelmed, because there are so many different platforms. There are so many spaces online that you can potentially build your online presence and build your brand online. There's obviously website, blogs, your EDM, so electronic direct marketing. You've got all of your social platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, LinkedIn. There are just so many, and within all of those platforms, then you can have posts, and then you can have stories and videos, and there are so many ways to do it. So I think as a starting point, particularly for those that maybe aren't online or are just sort of starting to play around online, to pick one or two and to really focus on doing those well, because if you try and do 15 from the beginning, you won't do any of them well.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you have to think about what fits best with you as well. Like, we've worked with some businesses that just don't do Facebook. They might just do Instagram. They might just do video, and they might not do written, like long form written content like blogs. So, and there are no rules, you don't have to do everything. Some businesses might be more aligned to LinkedIn, and some might be Twitter orientated. So I think that you really have to do your research as well about what might work best for your business, but also what you're comfortable using. If you already use Instagram a lot for your personal life, or and you're comfortable with that platform, then maybe start thinking about Instagram, which for some people would say is a really positive platform, more positive than others, but it depends who you speak to and what their experience is. So if your business is very photogenic, then Instagram is great. Often Lee and I find in our writing business, it's hard to come up with images because, you know, we haven't got a product. And so it's kind of thinking about how you can put that forward, but little videos of just helpful tips can be maybe more powerful than just an image. So platforms is something really worth considering. Katrina, would you agree?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things I was going to say there. One is think about where your customers are hanging out too. So, you know, like that's just another part of really figuring out who your target audience is. Because, you know, if your demographic is women and, you know, there's a certain age group, then chances are they're on Instagram. So it's really good to be there. I mean, if you're targeting men, probably they're not so much, maybe they're more on LinkedIn. Like just have a think about that, about who your product's for and where those people are hanging out, because that'll give you the best bang for your buck. And then match that with what you're comfortable with. And in terms of what you're comfortable with, you know, this is a really tricky one because I bet some people are going, oh gosh, well, no one wants to hear my story. Like my story is boring, or, you know, but, you know, I can 100% tell you that everybody has a story and every story is interesting and fascinating to everyone else, even if you think it's the most boring story in the world, because we all think we're not interesting, but actually it's different and it's your personal story and it's your perspective, and your perspective is what people love to learn and know about. And so just to give you that confidence boost and if you don't feel comfortable, then do the work to get comfortable, because showing up and being you and being authentic is what people will love. And it's that building that know, like, and trust. And unless they can see you, unless they can connect with you, they're not going to trust you. I mean, there's so many brands out there that don't have faces to them. And then it's like, and especially these days, unless you're getting, you know, present with them and getting up there in front of them, then it's going to make it a lot harder to build that connection. I've actually just been recently doing this like free course with the School of Visibility. Highly recommend checking that, particularly for women, because I think women particularly struggle with that really showing up online, and everybody gets so nervous about Facebook videos and Instagram videos and all that sort of thing. And just really powerful in that work is in just stepping into yourself and being able to back yourself. And you know, and like I love seeing people's videos and I love seeing that connection, and most people do love that. So just, you know, if you're not feeling that confidence, then do the work on building that up so that you can really get yourself out there, because that will really help to build that connection with people, I think. And you know, you'll really notice a difference once people can start to know, like, and trust you, I think.
And it's that level of exposure too, isn't it, Katrina, which is difficult for, you know, more difficult for some than others. And my advice would be too, that if you love playing, you know, on Instagram, but you're on there kind of looking at what everyone else is doing and you're thinking about launching something, maybe just start, you know, commenting on people's other, you know, products or brands as yourself, you know, like just putting it out there, because some people very nervous about even commenting or liking or sharing anything online. And if you have trouble doing that personally, then it's probably going to be the same in your business. So just get used to like putting your voice out there, and then, as you said, Katrina, figuring out what your voice is and what it is you have to say. So you do need to just dabble. And the biggest thing about online, and we say this to all of our clients, like if you're not giving online, you're not going to get anything back. So you can't just put things on there and expect people to give you the love, because if you're not giving it out, you're probably not going to get any back. So absolutely, you have to jump in at some point, don't you?
And that's a huge part of building your brand online that we haven't really touched on, and that is being a really good digital citizen and getting out there and engaging. So under your own business name, getting out and following, you know, other businesses that you love and that you may be aligned with, or just that you really love the way they go about doing things, and just getting to know them and commenting on their posts, and the love will come back to you. So that's a really important part about it. And I think the other thing too is not to, I mean, I agree with what you're saying, absolutely, Katrina, about, you know, getting out there and you've got to really show yourself and who you are, that kind of face behind the business, so people can build that connection with you. But not every time you engage online do you need to be doing that. There's so many other ways in building that online presence. Doesn't all have to be about your business. So those brand stories can be about your consumers and the value that they get in return for the service and the products that you're offering. So it can be a real blend, but it's important, I think, to have both.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, I would actually say a lot of it has to be about the customer, you know, like really you want to be really focusing on them mostly, you know, if anything. But it's how you or your service or your brand relates to what they really need and tapping into them. You know, it should be it's not about you, it's about them. Totally. Really, at the end of the day, meshed in with, as you say, a little bit of your story, but then relating that to how that helps your customer basically is the goal, really, isn't it?
Yep.
And that comes back to, again, like why your business exists. Like, for example, for our business, The Splendid Word, like we exist as storytellers because we want to tell positive stories, you know, about people. So as opposed to negative news stories. So, you know, that sort of that as a premise is sort of something that we can then share other people doing the same sort of thing. And you might have a turf business, but one of your, you know, values is the environment, you know, so you're going to talk about the environment, World Environment Day, and why we love green space. And so it's that bigger picture stuff, but you have to figure out what those things are, and that's where your business values should line up with your personal values about what's important to you, and then realize there's a whole bunch of other people out there that share those values as well. And it, you know, you're not going to relate to everybody, but that's okay, you know. So it's finding that kind of those bigger picture things that mean more, use those as a connection as well.
Mm-hmm.
So exactly, with the platforms, girls, did you want to talk specifically about some of the technical stuff, like which platforms we use? We've talked about a few, but what do we think works best for our businesses? Katrina, what would you say?
Okay, well, just this is more like a graphic design branding tip, but if you don't already know about Canva, then you need to get across it because it's a game changer. So just canva.com. And you can get a, you know, professional account or whatever. You can get the free account, but it's just, you know, you can design everything in there yourself, really. And it just is such a handy tool. And then, you know, obviously there's the scheduling apps and everything that you can use for Instagram and Facebook. I'm currently using Planoly, which is quite good. I'm quite liking that. I have used Plan in the past, which is PLANN. And there's also there's quite a few. And I think with that, it's just a bit of figuring out which one you like best, or which one works for you or works with your style. So but that is helpful for when you want to plan out your content ahead of time, which I'm actually not that great at doing. I kind of like to do it a bit more in the moment. But if you do like to plan ahead and plan out your weekly, like another thing that has worked well for me is like on a Monday morning or on a Sunday night or whenever you've got time at the start of the week, plan out your week's content. And gone are the days too where you have to have, it's not about like mass content anymore. There was a time when Instagram was all about, you know, like just heaps and heaps of posts every day. But now it really is that quality over quantity. So, you know, if you could just plan out 3 posts for the week using an app like Planoly or Later or something like that, then you're done. You know, it does take a lot of the pressure off too, especially if you're a business owner with kids and all that kind of thing. If you can do that little bit of planning at the start of the week, that can be really helpful. So that'd probably be my 2 main ones that I would recommend is Canva for your graphic design stuff, just awesome. And then Planoly for the like sort of planning stuff. Yeah, that's what I'm working with at the moment.
But you, Lee, technical stuff, what do you think works best?
The only other thing I was just going to circle back on, which we hadn't talked much about, was email.
Yes.
And I know, Katrina, you have your email database and we have ours for The Splendid Word. Just to mention how important that is for businesses as well. If you don't already have one, it's such an important element of building that brand online is to really start building a database of subscribers that you can email out to directly, because as we've spoken about on the podcast before, social media is all well and good and there is such powerful reach to be found on those platforms, but it's real estate that you don't own and it can be changed at any time, as happens all the time. Algorithms are not always working with us, often working against us, but that email database is something that you as a business actually own. And look, again, you know, at times email can be such a noisy space as well. We're all getting hundreds of emails in our inbox each day. But I know for me that some of the businesses who I do love and love the way they go about their work, I love hearing from them on email. You know, I wait for that weekly email to drop into my inbox. So I think that's one that people really should consider as well. And in doing that, I think the one key advice I would give there is just to make sure, if you are using email and sending out to your database, just to make sure what you're sending to them really offers them some value. There's no point just sending an email out just for the sake of sending one because you think, oh, I better send an email this week because that will help me build my, you know, online brand. And that goes for everything. I think really in every piece of content that you put online, really think carefully about what value it is that I'm offering in putting this out into the world. And if there isn't any value in it, maybe think again and don't do it. But yeah, I just think email is a big one. And I know for you, Katrina, as well, that's something that you use. What do you think about that one?
Yep, I could not agree more, and I totally agree with the fact that you own that. It's your database, and yes, I think building your email, and it's also like straight to them. The other thing that you just reminded me of there to talk about though too, in terms of building a brand, and it's like I'm looking at doing one for myself as well, but is to really look at the podcasting option or YouTube, but just as your really core content, and so more and more I'm realizing that that if you have a podcast or you have a YouTube, like it might seem completely overwhelming, but something to work towards. It just gives you that core piece of content every week then you can feed all your other avenues with that. So maybe this is for a more kind of advanced online business to be looking at. If you're just starting out, probably looking at podcasting and YouTubing might be a bit overwhelming at the moment, but for a more advanced business, highly would recommend starting a podcast or a YouTube channel or a IGTV. And you just focus on that one core piece of content each week that just adds heaps of value. And then you can take quotes from that and you can take bits from that. And, and I think that really builds your authority then too, as a thought leader in your industry and all that sort of stuff. So email, and then also like looking at podcasting and
that's
YouTubing.
Key. That's key what you're saying there, Katrina, is in repurposing content.
Definitely.
Yes.
Because you don't need to keep reinventing the wheel. So if, for example, with our Spreading the Good Stuff podcast, in what we're in this episode today, from this, we've then got content that can be used in our social media posts for the next week, in our email marketing, on our website, and that is just so important to keep in mind, that if you produce a piece of content, don't just roll it out in one spot. Think about how else you can best sort of get that bang for your buck and best use of your time. If you're going to put the time into creating something, then think about all the different ways that you can feed that out to the customers who are wanting to hear from you.
I agree, and I might just take a few steps back as far as having that that the content on your website. Like again, with email, with your website, you own what's on there. As far as opposed to social media. But for people a bit scared about podcasting, video and Instagram TV, like, a regular blog is a great place to start. And, the great thing about a blog on your website is that it's a place where you can really tell your story. Like, you can really put your imprint there, which can be shared over to social media and vice versa. And it really allows you to kind of, share your values, share your story, and really kind of, dive deep. And again, your blog can be shared in a regular email out to your people as well. I think it's a good place to start for those who might not be ready. Like, so if you're starting your business and you're not ready to sort of take on stuff that might be a bit technical, I think it's a really good place to start. And like Google ranking, putting a regular blog on your website will help with your Google ranking as well. Like, it'll just keep your content fresh. You can have lots of links to different things, like once you start a podcast, or you can add links in there as well. So if you are building a website, I would highly recommend that you have a blog kind of aspect or tool in there, because it's really, really useful.
And well, also on that though, just think about what you're most comfortable with too. Like, I don't like writing.
Yes.
I much prefer making videos. So if you don't like writing, you'll probably never do it. So, totally. And as another technical tip for creating a website too, you just reminded me something to talk about, is you don't need to spend a fortune on a website.
No,
you can make your own website so easily these days. And I don't know if you guys agree, but I tend to not go to websites as much these days. So I don't think you need to make your website, unless it's a product-based website, then, and that can get really technical, then I think it is worth paying someone if you've got heaps of different products. But if you're a service-based business, or if you've just got, a couple of products, then just Squarespace or Wix are just, perfectly fine and simple to do it on. So don't feel like you need to spend a fortune on a website, that's for sure. But yeah, and also, blogging, excellent, Chris. And if, maybe it's just a quick little, if you're more comfortable just bashing something out on camera, then video yourself doing a blog, for, each week.
Totally.
But if you like writing, write, yes, but that weekly content is really super helpful.
Yeah.
And I think this leads really nicely. Yeah, this conversation leads nicely into kind of, technical stuff at the back end, like the stuff people don't see. And obviously planning is really important. And that was a tool that I wanted to talk about, which also, you know, leads into probably one of my favorite tools is Trello, or any type of online kind of organizational project-based platform. So Trello.com is a online whiteboard as such, for want of a better explanation. And we use it for all of our business work. I use it for personal stuff as well, and all of our clients use it as well. So it's a wonderful platform where you can order all your information. You might have a board that's got your website content, your social media content, your core values, your marketing tools, like everything's on there. So it's a one-stop shop. It takes everything that's happening in your business and in your head out of email, out of text messages, out of all the other messages you might be sharing with people, and it puts it in one spot. So there are other versions of Trello, like Asana is one that we used a while ago, Lee, which, you know, I think works for some people as well. But Trello works really, really well for us. And you can upload documents, you can upload images, you can set reminders, you can do so much with it. It's really cool. So that would be a place to start.
We've been using Trello now for probably 4 years at least.
Yeah, at least, I reckon. Yeah, and it's free.
Absolutely love it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really good.
It's got everything that we need.
You can use it for personal stuff. I know, like, I'm involved with, you know, sporting organizations, and I'm like, let's put all this stuff happening in this sporting club, you know, out of email and out of stuff, and put it all on this Trello board. So you can have all your, you know, you can have rosters on there, you can have everything. It's just really great. And because it's free. And that's one thing we haven't really touched on. Like, yes, there's lots of things you can buy, and you can, have someone make a website for you, but there are so many free tools out there, particularly when it comes to social media. Like, it's all free.
Totally. And the Trello, Christy, too, as you say, I mean, we use it a lot for our planning for our social media, for the Splendid Words social media, but also for a lot of our clients' social media, because we can all hook in. Our clients can jump in on the boards as well and upload their photos and check off on copy that we've written for them. It doesn't do the posting as such, but, you know, you can always have another program alongside it if you need that, but we just find it works beautifully for us. It's so visual, you can see everything there that you need.
It orders everything for you. It really takes it gives everything in order. And I think sometimes when you're starting a new business, or you might be rebranding or reinventing, which a lot of us have had to do in this time, where do you even start? You know, like, and then if you have a plan and it's on a whiteboard but online, which you can have in your back pocket, because there's an app too that you can use on your phone. So we don't get paid by Trello, but we bloody should, because
we do. I mean,
just thinking that too.
A huge part of our
campaign people.
A huge part of our work now is actually in teaching clients how to use Trello. So, but we love it.
If you're out there,
if you need help, we're here.
Do a course, girls. You should create a course. There's a good pivot for you.
Oh dear. I just love finding things that are helpful. And, you know, I've recently helped a couple of businesses just put all their social media stuff that was in their email and in their head and in their, you know, the boss's head, like just all on the board. And they're kind of like, oh my God, like it's all there. And they didn't feel that overwhelmed. So, I mean, I'm sure there's other tools out there. And, you know, once this episode goes live, we'd love to hear from anyone listening about the tools that they use, because there's, you know, more than one way to do these things. So, but this is, that's something that we definitely use. And that's what I love. That's probably my favorite tool, as far as, you know, how to just
we can tell
things. So that's enough from Trello from me.
I'm not sure you love it as much as us, do you, Katrina? We have dragged you into Trello.
Oh, look, I'm just not as project managing planning. Like, it's just attention to detail is not my thing. So, like, you know, I do, like, I like it, I appreciate it, but I don't sort of obsess over it.
You love you love carrying everything around in your head, Katrina.
Yeah, I do. I like the big picture, strategic visioning stuff. I'm not so good on the detail, but
you're lucky
I do
you've got us in the
it.
background doing the attention to detail.
So where do you put your planning, Katrina? I'd love to know.
All over the place.
Exposed here, exposed.
Okay, this is definitely not my strength area. So yeah, I've got some Trello boards, I've got some Google Drive stuff, I've got some Dropbox stuff. There's just, it's you wouldn't want to see my
sharing it around.
Yeah, exactly. So Lee, what's your tip?
Well, a lot of the tools that you girls have talked about I love as well, but the one thing I thought perhaps just the tip I would give, given that we were sort of at the very beginning talking about that first step and what to do before you even think about getting online, and that's all about getting clear on your brand story. So I would just suggest there that it is such an important tool for anyone in business to have, is a brand strategy. And there are so many ways to go about doing a brand strategy. They can be as simple or as complicated as you want them to be. And we do a lot of work with people around brand strategies just to help with then telling their stories. So I thought I'd just mention a couple of the key items to work on, and you can pull together your own brand strategy. So just to make sure that it includes your vision. So that's really the idea behind the brand, to help, guide the future for you. It focuses really on tomorrow and who you want to become. So starting off with your brand vision, your mission statement. So that's really looking at the pain points of the day-to-day struggles that you're offering solutions to. So the what do we do, the why we do it, that really tangible stuff. Then to look at your brand values, and often those brand values in business are one and the same with who you are as a person, because let's be honest, really there's no difference between you and your business, and what you stand for, particularly if you're running your own business. So those brand values, then looking at your brand's unique message. So we talked about that. There can be 10 different brands that are copywriting like we are, or that are selling shoes, but the key is to finding that really unique selling point. For us, it's about spreading the good stuff and using our words as a force for good. That's what sets us apart from other people who do the same kind of work as us. So getting really clear on your unique message and story. And then things like what you want your business to be known for. That's a really important thing as well. Of course, where you are going to express your messages, on what platforms. Your tone of voice is a really important one to get clear on, how you want to sound. Whether, you might be wanting to be a professional sounding brand, or educational, a more, gentle, a softer, warmer kind of brand. Just get really clear on that tone of voice. Who your people are, so being really clear about who those heroes are in your brand story. And of course, like you spoke about, Katrina, that target audience, so really knowing who it is that you're talking to, what their buying behaviours are, where they hang out online. So there's probably, 10 sort of key headings to include, and just you can pull together your own brand strategy. But it is just such a powerful tool then to always circle back on any time that you are going to put content out there and that you are putting your business out there online. It will just keep that consistency of brand moving forward, which I think is really, really important.
Yeah, I agree. And I just want to touch on one point, Lee, you mentioned there. I know we spoke earlier about paralysis by analysis and just kind of putting stuff out there, but I think research is really important to sort of see what other people are doing, and not just finding other businesses that you love the look of and what they're doing online, but also figuring out what you don't like and what you don't want to look like online. I think that's just as important, totally. Because we all see those businesses and go, oh, that's kind of, they're not talking to me, or that I don't get that. Whereas you'll have others that you really align yourself with, and I think, we're not talking about copying what other people are doing, but we're talking about kind of looking how other people behave online and how they build their brand, and go with something similar, or see the videos they might be doing, or see the content they're writing, and kind of go, yeah, that fits with my skill set or what I feel comfortable with. So I think research is really important, but not to the point where you get overwhelmed and go, oh, I can't do that because they do it heaps better than me. They were probably at your point. They were probably at your point at some point as well. So you don't get overwhelmed by the comparison. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, or just give yourself a timeline. Yeah, give yourself a time frame for the research, because you can get really stuck in what's everyone else doing. Trust me.
Yes, I know.
I've been there.
But it's probably a journey, isn't it, Katrina? Like you have to put yourself out there and have a look and immerse yourself to kind of be in the world. Like if you've never been on Instagram before, you're probably not going to go, well, I'm going to go on Instagram tomorrow. You probably need to play in the space for a while. And even that is just observing for a little bit and going with what's comfortable. So I feel like each topic we talk about kind of flows into another one. Like we could keep talking forever, but we are going to be covering lots of other topics in our next couple of conversations, Lee.
Yeah, so from this episode, the next couple of episodes will be interviews with some small businesses based in the Murray River Council region. So they'll be coming at you. We're probably looking at maybe weekly for these, but we'll make sure you're following us on the socials, and we will be giving you plenty of warning as to what's coming up and when. Usually we're fortnightly on a Thursday that we release the episodes, but we're going to change things up a bit just for this month because we've got a few extra episodes to slip in. So yeah, the next 2 episodes will be interviews with businesses who have been forced to pivot during this time of the global pandemic, looking at what they've done, how they've done it, and the lessons that they've learned. And then we'll wrap up with another one at the end that will be with a thought leader, probably more around financials. We're looking at financial support for small business. So we'll keep you informed as we go along during the month. But yeah, if there's any feedback that you've got to give us following on from this episode, any questions, anything specifically you'd love us to ask some of the businesses that we're going to be interviewing, then please get in touch.
And I think for all the technical stuff too, Lee, to jump in there, all the technical things we may have mentioned, any kind of, you know, products we might use or tools, we will share the links to those in our show notes. So for those new to the podcast, we always share a link on our socials and also on where we share our podcast for the show notes. So if you go in there, we pretty much have everything we've talked about, even if it's just a sort of random book or a random podcast or whatever, we always share the links in there. So then you can actually find the practical tools that we're talking about. So hopefully that helps. But feel free to touch base, you know, via direct message on any of our socials. And we're only a quick message away, really. One of us will, touch base. So I think today's been fun. I feel like we've just, you know, it's the tip of the iceberg, really.
We have covered a lot.
Yeah, it's been
yes,
great.
I hope it wasn't too overwhelming for people, but there's a lot. We could talk about this stuff all day, I think. But I think that document that you talked about at the end there, Lee, and doing your brand sort of strategy, I think really summed up everything that we talked about, and is a lovely place to start for people, I think, too, or go back to.
Yeah,
definitely.
Okay, girls. Well, thank you. Thanks for the chat.
Thanks for chatting. That was fun.
Thanks everybody for listening.
Thanks, guys.
And thanks to Murray River Council for partnering with us for this special series of episodes during Small Business Month in New South Wales in October. We'll chat to you next time.
Bye for now.
Bye.
See ya.